our education system has failed, as you know. And then it just continues because it is an institution. But the institution, like Mark said, is not a great place to be because we don't know how. We've lost control. And, our kids are pretty much, or our government has ran basically our families.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pathways to Breaking the Cycle podcast. I am so excited to have you guys here tonight. And we are talking about breaking barriers, the path beyond incarceration. And I literally am so excited. I've been so excited for this night simply because both of you did time with my husband, and his anniversary is coming up soon. So I brought some pictures of him just to share and just in memory of him. He gave me a lot of support with the beginning of my journey with Josiah's incarceration when he had to turn himself in. He helped me find a lawyer for Josiah, and I'm just so grateful. And when I had problems and I had to go to the county commissioner meetings, he went with me and he cheered me on all the way. And I'm just so grateful for him. And rest in power to Ray Baca. I just want to begin by introducing everybody. And we have on the panel tonight, Retta, and we have Mark, and we have Steve. And I just want to begin with you guys just by sharing your story. Give us a little bit of your background. And you want to start, Steve? We're here to listen.
Starting when? Sorry, I'm still getting over a cold.
Whatever, it's okay. Just start wherever you want to start, wherever you feel compelled.
I did about 20 years in prison, federal and state. I was a renegade. My parents passed away. My mom passed away when I was 9, cancer. My dad got killed when I was 13, and that's when I just started acting a fool and selling drugs. And when I was 16, I committed murder, was in there for manslaughter, got out, and started selling drugs, in and out the system.
Wow. That's a lot to process at an early age. I know for me, grieving Ray's death, I still have days, hard days. And then one day I think that I'm there and I'm healed. And then the next day I'm like, okay, what happened to yesterday? So I can't even begin to imagine what it's like as a child to process that, So I can easily see why, you went the way that you did. How old were you when you went in the first time?
I mean, in juvie, I can't even remember. I think it was 13, 14 for selling crack. But, in juvie, the first time you get locked up, your peoples could come get you. You know what I'm saying? They could bond you out. So you're not really learning your lesson. And then you get put on probation, ISP, all that. But it wasn't until I caught that manslaughter where I actually sat and did some time.
What was that like for you?
I mean, I was 16, so I was in juvie until I was 18, and then they charged me as an adult. Then I went to Hobbs for a couple years and then got out. But, you have all this bitterness and anger and, you know what I mean? I didn't have nobody there to uplift me, encourage, you know what I mean? I had no trades, nothing, you know what I mean, to fall back on. So I just did what I knew and adapted and started selling dope again, robbing people and,
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's heavy. Did you go into Hobbs under the age of 18?
No, I was 18.
Oh, you were 18?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, Jesus, they sent you there at a young age. My God. And then you did how much time for that?
They gave me 7.5, but I ended up doing 4.5. So 21, 16, 20, about 4, some change.
So was the law the same back then? Because I know now if you, as a juvenile, if you commit murder at the age of 13 or 14, then you go to YDDC till you're 21.
Yeah.
Most of the time, right? So back then,
I think it was just how my plea deal was arranged, because I could have went for a youthful term, but they're like, here, let us, you know what I mean?
right?
Send you as an adult. And I was like, I was doing the numbers in my head, and I was like, shit, I'd still get out at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me just go get this over with real quick. I should have went to YDDC and
Until you were 21.
until I was 21, and not really have it on an adult record. You know what I mean? But I mean,
how do you guys feel about that? Like, what do you think? What, Retta? I mean, I want your opinion too, as much as I want theirs. But how do you guys feel about young men going into the prison system under the age of like 21? Do you think that they should build some kind of, I don't know, facility, or maybe open up, what was that facility? Camino Nuevo? Is that what it was called? To place like younger guys in there from like 18 to 25 in their own facility. Like, how do you guys feel about that? You've been, you've experienced the system.
I feel like they should have probably had a different facility or something, you know what I mean? Because once you're getting sent to an adult prison, you're already tainted, you know what I mean? Like, it's a whole different caliber of people, you know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, it's corrupts you for sure.
What do you think, Mark?
I'm the type of person that looks at things like through the of my own lenses.
Right.
So like as a youngster, if I would have been in prison, I wouldn't want to be put in a special place, you know what I mean? Because that separates you from the rest, you know what I mean?
Right.
So for my perspective, I feel like it like younger, because there is situations where there's teenagers like are in prison, 16 and stuff like
Right.
They do put them, and I don't feel like
They go in that young?
they can put
Oh my
15.
God. I didn't know
they
that.
can put you in a adult prison at 15 years old. So, and that's I'm not sure how the laws are now, but what it comes down to is when you're a juvenile, they have a choice to charge you as an adult or a juvenile. And then if they decide to charge you as a juvenile, then they have two choices with you after that, which is they could keep you locked up in a juvenile facility until you're 21, or they're trying to change the law now to 25, or they keep you in a juvenile facility until the appropriate age that they feel like you can handle a state prison. So, you know what I mean? Those are things that either way, you can't look at juvenile facilities and say that they're better than adult prisons, because they're exactly the same.
Right.
But
there's no predators there. Or yeah, I guess
Yes,
there is. Yes, there is.
Yes,
You're
there
right.
is.
Yeah, you're right.
and it's actually worse.
Really? In a juvenile facility?
Yes, because if you can look at this statistics, the sexual misconducts and I'm trying to speak like I'm trying to be
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Because there's other, like, I would
Rated
say,
PG?
but the sexual misconducts and the rapings and those type of things are that's a problem in juvenile way.
Oh my God.
And I mean, just think about hormones, youngsters, we've all, you know what I mean? So then now you're locked in a confined facility
Right.
with a bunch of people, and you know what I mean? And like in the juvenile facilities, they separate them from, like they'll be like 13 and they'll all be in one pod, and then there'll be like 14 to 16-year-olds in one pod, and then 17 to 18s in one pod. They kind of separate them like that. But those type of things are rampant in the juvenile system. They don't talk about it a lot, but if you look at the statistics, it's probably worse than the adult system.
Wow. I
And-
never looked at the statistics before.
Well, I just know because like
Yeah.
I was there.
Right.
Like, no, but I mean, like,
I'm glad you're, like,
I was
giving
in
us
like
knowledge.
an adult prison.
Right.
And I also, like, my story is I was a youngster and I moved here from another state. I moved here like young, but I grew up, like, I was raised here in New Mexico. I'm from New Mexico. You
You're
know
a
what I mean?
Buqueño?
Yeah. Straight up. But my dad was military, so we bounced around the country a lot. But the Albuquerque was always home. My grandparents both worked for the Los Alamos labs and all that. So bounced around, but kind of lived in the hood, on the west side for a while, and then like we're getting a house. My parents were getting a house built or whatever, but got into trouble, in high school and all that, but not a lot of trouble, but ended up going to YDDC for like 15 days. And being around that whole crowd,
Right.
got my stuff together a little bit, tried to join the military, got kicked out of the military because I was still doing shenanigans, and came back, and ended up in prison because I was still doing shenanigans, drinking, just a lot, like addictional behaviors with like a functioning addictional behaviors. But you know what I'm saying? Like I would go to work and I would do everything, but like if you looked at the inside of the closet, it was crap. So ended up in prison, and for a shooting and some things. Did 10 years, and from seeing the juvenile, like what you see in there, and from the adult system, those things, it's all the same. But there are things that are a little bit different in juvenile facilities, and I would say like that area is very bad in the juvenile area.
Oh my God. I would have never thought that. Never. I would have never. For me, in my mind, I guess, because Josiah had to do a little bit of time in YDDC for a charge that he got while he was a teenager. And I honestly, he never went to JDC. He got shipped from Estancia to YDDC, and he was it was really hard for him to transition because he went from an adult facility to a youth facility, and it's so different, right? And I just felt like he got like really good therapy and reform there. Like it almost prepared him for prison in a kind of weird way, I was able to do therapy with him every other Thursday, and doing that therapy by going into his lodge and sitting with him with the therapist, and he got to show me his room. And it was just really, I thought it was a really good thing, for him and for myself. So in my mind, I'm like, God, I wish he could just do all of his time in a youth facility, because in my mind, I thought like they're better than him going to prison. But you're right. Maybe it is a little bit different because of the respect thing too in prison, right? It's different from the youth facilities.
Well, you have to think you have youths that, they're immature. Right. And there's some that are immature than more than, what I mean, on different levels. But like when a juvenile goes to prison, I feel like it's kind of like you're in high school when you're in juvenile. Okay. Camino Nuevo, all these Springer, like for me and Ray and all these guys, it was Springer, YDDC, and all these places. But if you actually seen what happened, there was just like prison. And you had to do, they had to give you counseling because you're an adult and all that stuff. But it's just like prison. You're in there lifting weights. You're in there learning the politics. That's the beginning of the politics, because, these generational curses are not, it's not like this kid's in YDDC and he's never, his uncle, brother. So it's a generational curse that comes down to the fact that, like, if you're a youngster and you're in a juvenile prison, but say this is the culture that you've lived your whole life, my dad, my brother, my uncle, they've already been through it. So chances are it's like, oh, well, I know so-and-so, or this is my dad, or I'm connected to this. So it's a pathway into a lifestyle that leads to a lot of pain and destruction. Right. But when you're on that path, you don't see it. You know what I mean? Because it's
almost like normalcy.
It's normalcy. And that's the thing about life skills and all these things. They want to change. They want to make changes. Well, you don't make changes by creating, like you think you can put a patch a hole, and like the incarceration and all of that's like a leaking sieve. Okay. We're never going to get rid of incarceration, but we can change the way people are treated while they are incarcerated. And you can change the fact that they're giving people like tons of years to rehabilitatable people. You know what I mean? So you're going to give a juvenile, like, you've been through that. Yeah. They gave you all this time, and they could have gave you more time. And it's like, you got all this time, and if the goal is to rehabilitate somebody and make a productive member of society, that means you don't give them 30 years in prison and produce, and it's, you know, it's an animal.
Right.
That's what's produced behind these walls. And no matter if it's a juvenile facility or an adult facility, it is producing animals, because no matter what, it's like if we were all thrown out on an island, within a period of time, there will be a system of organization set up between that's just what humans do. So when you put a bunch of guys that don't necessarily follow the rule, right? We don't follow the rules. You know what I mean? What's going to happen when you put them in a room? Like, if we're all locked in here together for 10 years, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
Like, the only thing that we're going to create.
Me and Red are going to be gangster, and you and Steve are going to be gangster. We're just going to have to go at it.
So that's the culture. That's the culture that it's produced. And if we want to make changes is like, we were talking about, like we were saying, make prison and being incarcerated can be a bad positive. And that's what we used to say about the military. Because when you like, there's a saying we'd say, because they call it the suck. It sucks. You're over there at 4 a.m. doing push-ups. You got people yelling at you. But when you get out of the military, you realize, oh, the suck doesn't suck so bad, because you know what I mean. You have a job. You have a purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Benefits.
Yeah, benefits. Right. So if they took prison and made it a bad positive, and what I mean by that is, okay, we all get that we mess up. They want to pay. We give them the pound of flesh, but I don't feel like it should be so many years.
Right.
You know what I mean? To where it's like, this child's rehabilitatable, but you gave him 30 years in prison. So what's rehabilitatable there? Because after the 30 years of being incarcerated in a jungle, there's nothing. There's good. It's a
and
whole,
with no reform.
and no reform. And you know, because there's some of us that were able to survive and come out normal. And it's because, you know what I mean? It's probably because of, you know, I've always like worked and had skills. Like, I grew up with a dad, you know what I mean? I didn't have a mom, but I had a dad. But that's what I feel like, you know, people, you know, you get in trouble. Why can't you want to send somebody to prison? Why not go send them to the military?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because that would be a positive change, and it would be productive and something for the community. But even if they wouldn't want to do that, why not? When you go to prison, it's like going to college instead of going to, because when you go to prison now, it's like going to college for gangsters. You know what I mean? And it's not even college, because like I've been in the federal systems, like Purdue, and then the state, you know what I mean? Yeah. No, that's the real thing. Like, that's the like the federal system is like, that's the, you know what I mean? And then the state system is like going to UNM.
Yeah.
So federal is like going to Yale.
Yeah. No, because it's the upper echelon of criminal, and not just criminal, because you experience just anybody that's the government is against is going to be incarcerated.
Right.
You know what I mean? And yes, there's a large number of criminals. And yes, some people, like, we all know that if right now, if I was across the state or across the city and my wife said somebody's breaking into the house, I would say call 911. That we know those are all purposes that but it's what happens after that. Because you can take a kid and he may mess up, but I bet you if you took that kid and taught him how to
some life skills,
pour concrete.
Yep.
Okay. So you commit a crime. So you're going to do 5 years. And guess what? Those 5 years, you're going to go to the electrical trade union.
Right.
And it's going to be like, and they can, you know, like prisons in other countries like Sweden and Finland, they're like dorms.
Or even like Norway. I heard
Norway
is like,
they're like dorms, and they don't believe in long sentences. But they're like dorms. So they go to prison and they have to be there, and they don't take you away from your family. And that's another thing is we need to fight the fact that they've taken away family visits.
Absolutely.
They've taken away visits for your wives. And
And now they're only giving me
attorneys.
2 hours. So I drive all the way to Hobbs. I have a 6-hour drive to Hobbs.
Correct.
And I see him for 2 hours.
And you're supposed to have, and it's in the, if you look at policies of the prison, you're supposed to have all day. You can come visit all day, and you're supposed to be built. You could, if you wanted to, you could come visit every day. But see, they changed all those things, and Governor, what was her name?
Michelle Lujan?
No.
Oh, who?
Susanna Martinez.
Susanna Martinez.
Oh, there you go.
She took away the family visits. Now we can get into all family visits include conjugals and all. Okay, but family visits also include your family, your mom, your dad could come visit, and you would be able to stay in a little cabin trailer for 3 and you earn, and these are privileges you would earn. Like if you were good, you would get 24 hours. And then if you're good for another 3 months, you would get 2 days. And then if you're good for another, you'd work your way up to a whole weekend that you could be out there barbecuing. Oh, and all that. And then if you rewind it more, all the way back to the state penitentiary days, they used to have big old picnics.
Well, I was just going to tell you that when my brother was locked up in Santa Fe, we went, my mom and I, my dad and my daughter went to a picnic. It was an outside picnic. They had stuff for the kids. It was like really,
it was really
cool.
good. And you want to know what kind of environment that creates in prison? Because I'm going to tell you what those, because for guys like me and him, you know what those days were? Like and this is like, it don't matter because there's a lot of politics in prison and you have enemies, but you could be sitting next to an enemy and like say it's
it's like neutral territory.
Yeah, neutral territory. So one of those days though would be a day that everybody in prison would be like, today we're not in prison.
Yeah.
And you know how good that like that produces, it makes an environment of like, yeah, we're here in prison and yeah, we did something wrong, but let's try to make better life choices and changes. But you can't do that without the support of your family.
Right.
Or somebody. So there's people that go to prison and they don't have no support. And you know what? It's hard.
Which is why I try to give Josiah as much normalcy as I can. I always make sure, like now they got tablets 2 days ago and he's like on a high. He's like, man, I watched a movie last night. He said, and then he called me today. I put $25 a couple of days ago because I'm just learning this new app, right? Smart Communications. And he calls me today and he's like, well, did you get my message? And I'm like, well, no, it doesn't alert you because it's not an app like the way like, what was it, GTL, like getting out or whatever. So he said, well, can you put,
check it all the time.
Yeah. Can you put more credits on my tablet? And I'm thinking, God dang, man, here it goes, more money. Because I have to send him money for commissary. And then last week he said, oh, can we do it? Can we make an order? Because I need some more thermals. I need T-shirts, And I'm just like, Jesus, okay, well, let's do this. But like I said, going back to the normalcy thing, is I want my kid to have that. I don't care if I had to go get another job. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make it happen, right? And like I send him pictures through Pally Post every week. I take pictures all week long of his nephews, me, my daughter, my son, all of us, my mom and dad. And I keep him up to date on everything. Like yesterday, he said, Mom, can you get on the internet and send me some pictures of Andy Roy? And Andy Roy is a professional skateboarder because my son I shared that with you. He was a skateboarder pretty much his whole life. So here I am, screenshotting Andy Roy to send it to him because I want him to have that normalcy, right? Like he tells me all the time, man, I wish I could just get on a skateboard here and just skate outside in the yard. That's something that could be, good for them. But then I also see it like they might use it to like hit each other with it, in a fight, or I don't know.
No, there's always, just like, they try to, man, when we had the weights in there, it was like nice. And nothing ever even happened with the weights. They just came into it. Like back in the day, things happened. But once things were like, like those are things that people appreciate as you're locked up. And just to let you know, those pictures and all that, those are probably pretty, you know what I mean? And I know it sucks. Hey, I need you to do this 3-way for me. Hey, Mom, I need you, you know what I mean? But it's all
you can't do that anymore. They'll hang up. The phone will hang up on you.
Oh, I know,
but no, you cannot do 3 ways. If you do a 3-way, it'll completely hang up on you. It won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't let you do that. And I told Josiah when he went to RDC, I said, I'm just telling you right now, don't call me and ask me to cash app anybody. Don't ask me to do. But he.
And you know what? It's not, and people, and with all that too, it's not always bad when they call you and ask you for money.
No,
Yeah.
I know.
You know what I mean? It's not.
Because sometimes he wants to buy food.
Because I would
Yeah.
call I had a buddy like that was in like I've known my whole life, and I would call him and he would just laugh because I'm a shoe freak,
Yeah.
and I'm from when soda come in and I already know it, like and I know but I already know it. I'll be like, I'll give you $300.
When you said you're a shoe freak, I'm like, you liked solitary confinement?
Oh my God.
In my head, I was thinking that. I'm like, because one of Ray's friends, Casper. I don't know if you guys know Casper, but he told me the other day, he goes, I like the shoe. He said, I like being in there. He said, I meditated, I prayed, I did all kinds of stuff. And I was like, why would you like it in there? But anyway, when you said that, that's what I was thinking. I was like, you too?
No, that's SHU.
Yeah. You like the SHOE.
No, but you do. Then that's another thing too, is that as you end up doing a lot of time and you find out that you get in all kinds of trouble, like, that's how, and you learn that the security housing units, which it's bad on paper, the administration don't like you and all, but the security housing unit is like, that's like the best place to do your time, because it passes the time, but it puts you in a cycle of like, this is how I did my time. I would go from level 6 to back to the level 3, and then you just go until you get in trouble again. You just go, you're just like,
Breaks your time up.
Yeah, and it just breaks it up, and you don't have, and that's what I mean, because there's nothing in there to do but to be
Right.
to learn how to be a better criminal. And that's the things that I wish would change, because I would sit there and I would like my friends, because they would sit there and look at me, and I would have pictures of like trucks and like, or they would see, I would see a piece of heavy equipment on TV, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a John Deere SC210. and my friends, and my friends, like all my friends are like Ray and all these guys, that are like, they're like, what? like
That's hilarious.
And they're always they're just always laughing because but they always, you got to be yourself. You got to be yourself. And I would always be like, man, I was like, I don't know anything about, like, I'm not like, that I like, but I know how to work, and I know what a truck looks like, and I know what a Corvette and a muscle car does,
Yeah.
But the cycle that it produces, people need to just, and I was even telling her about, like, people feel like they threw you a bone when you get out of prison, like, oh, you need a job? I'll get you a job at the Octopus. right. This is what it is back in the day. And
a detail shop.
And no, but that's how it was. Like, you'd go to the parole office, and they'd be like, you're like, man, I'm looking for a job, and they're like, well, you have 2 weeks to get a job. And you're like, man, like, it takes a while, especially it takes a while for a guy like me to get a job. For one, is some people can't function like it. I can't go, and I'm not knocking anybody that does it, but I can't go be like, I can't be like customer service, like serve food or do that. I'll start. Oh, what? Oh, you didn't.
Hey, and me, I'll forget what they ordered.
Yeah. But
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, like, for someone that goes to prison, and let's just keep it real, like, maybe some people are good at being criminals. So how are you going to tell a guy that was taking care of his family, maybe not in a way that's so approved of, right? Society approves of, but hey, was taking care of his family, had a house, nice things, and then, you know what? He goes to prison, and then he wants to change his life, and then you tell him I'll throw you a bone and get you a job at the Octopus Car Wash. Okay, well, who wants to do that? I'm like, you know what? You want to throw somebody a bone? You get them, you throw them a good job,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And let them work and show you. But you like, here's a good job, one that you can be proud of, and go home and be like, babe, I'm working at Not babe. I'm working at Octopus, which
You got healthcare, 401k.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
and those are and let me tell you something. They have so much. They have people look at the workforce solutions. They all have all these jobs that the city and all these people are looking for, right? And then they want to say, oh, well, we don't want you to work for us because you're a felon. But guess what? When you're in prison, they'll have you putting fires out,
Yep.
and they'll have you doing
For $1 an hour.
for $1 an hour. So, and your workmanship is like, oh yeah, like, so it's like, okay, so the workmanship's good enough for you, and all this and this and this is good for you, and it's good for you when you don't have to pay. But now when I get out on the streets, you want me to just be this and that. And it's and I promise you, if we change some of those things and start teaching our people skills and things like that, and yeah, when they go to prison, that we don't just sit there and treat them like an animal,
Right.
you know,
And opening up doors of opportunity
yeah,
for you guys when you come out of prison, and not throwing you a little bone of going to the
Well,
octopus.
and we
you
have
know?
a lot of experience with that because that's what my wife does.
Right.
And you know what? They fight her the probation and parole. They fight her they look before, like, you know, they don't like her because she felt like when somebody got out of prison that she would buy them a cell phone and be like, hey, when you get a job, you can pay me back. And probation and parole didn't like the fact that she did that for people. That's crossing boundaries.
You're enabling them.
You're enabling them, right?
Totally.
And it's like, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you, like that, and that's real stuff. Like, okay, shoot, I'm gonna get you a cell phone, you pay me back.
Right.
I'm gonna go get you hygiene and boxers because I got out of prison and they gave me nothing. I had
$50.
nothing. A $50 check.
What are you going
But
to
you
do with
can't
that? What
cash-
did you do
and
with
you
your
don't
$50?
cash. You don't have
Got
an
ID. Yeah.
And that's another, like I said, skills. But I would always tell people, you gotta save all your money.
Yeah.
You gotta save everything because we are getting out one day. And people are like, and you're crazy. You know, you're like 10 years. I'm
No,
like, no,
but that's
But you imagine save all this money for 10 years and look how much so I got out with like $4,500. You know what I mean? And during COVID, it was pretty bad. So everybody spent a lot of money during COVID.
yeah.
But
All their unemployment check,
yes,
$1,000
yes.
a week.
But
Stimulus.
you got to
Yeah.
save money and all that. But then they it's just crazy because, like, I remember I was a barber and I would get my check and they would take taxes out of my check.
Wow.
But I couldn't.
In prison?
Yes. I'll show you.
That is crazy.
They take victims.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they take
Yeah.
victims impact out.
Restitution.
They take
and if you got
restitution out,
restitution
and then they
stuff, yeah.
take like a little tax out. And I'm like, but I can't file taxes, but you're taking tax out of my paycheck. And then when I buy commissary, and it's not even me buying commissary, well, I buy commissary, but for 90% of people in prison, it's your parents or your wife or somebody that's buying commissary. And guess
Because the
what?
government's always fucking.
They're paying taxes.
Totally.
They're paying taxes, and they're not even supposed to be paying taxes on food, but you're paying taxes on commissary food.
Right. And it's like 3 times the amount of what it would be in the grocery
Right.
store.
Right.
But let's rewind. So as a mother, I sit here and you know, Steve shared his story with me last weekend, and I sit here and I look at Steve and I think like, wow, you know, in my head, I'm like, okay, I can understand why he went the route he went, right? I mean, he lost his parents at a very young age. You know, he was trying to find his way and he was dealing with his grief the way he was dealing with it, right? But now I hear your story. You come, just like my brother, came from a home and you said you were military and you moved a lot from state to state. And you said you had a solid foundation. What caused you to go the route you went?
Just, you know, like, honestly, once you experience that lifestyle or you get locked up, you learn all. And I'll just give you the funny example because
Ray's friend Castor said, once you get bit by the bug,
Yes.
it's like-
Yes. Well, let me tell you, we had this guy. I won't say no names, but he's an older man. Like, he went to prison. It was for a murder and all that stuff, right? But he goes to prison at like 50 years old, and he's like totally like, you know what I mean? And so he's in there with us for like 2-3 years. And one day he goes, "Yeah, I learned all kinds of stuff." He's telling his mom, or he's calling somebody, right? And he's like, "Yeah, I learned all kinds of stuff." I learned about rucas and cavos.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, And it's hilarious, right? To see this 50-year-old dude that's never even, right? He's talking about, rucas and clavos and, and so, but what you don't see is that change, you know what I mean? That's how, like, it's like oil in water. You can take a normal person, and I kind of felt like it, but I never saw I never really had an example of somebody like, let's just, like an example of like, let's have an experiment. Let's take, street kind of kid that went public school and put him in prison. And let's take kid that went to private school and college and we put the two people in prison. And do you think, because of this or this, the outcome is going to be any different?
No,
it's not.
And there's a lot of that.
And that's the part, because they come out and it's like this. We know. It just like what you guys were talking about on the Texas. Yeah. And because yep. and the thing about it is, and I'm like, I'm straight up with my wife, and there's things I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. That's why I don't want to talk about this. But there's things like guys like me, if I had to go back to jail, there's obligations of like, because if you remember you being there and you're perpetuating the cycle, hey, you don't ever go to jail. Like, you know what I mean? So you're perpetuating the cycle of something that you may have never been inside you. You know what I mean? That the talk, the lingo, any of that, you know what I mean? You learn it all and then it becomes a part of you. And some people can never get it. Some people can never stop it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll never be able to stop it. And that's the thing that's like, when you walk out those doors, people have to realize that you can put away all of that. Just like me and him could be in here right now and we could have told you to put, you know what I mean? But it's like, if you really truly want to put that away, then my name is my name, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And the
Absolutely.
things, you know what I mean? And the things, and she knows. I'm a pretty good shaped guy, but I don't wear like, and I'm not saying, but my own personal, I don't, even at the gym and all that, I don't try to show my tattoos.
Right.
Because they're they are.
I do.
No, I love my tattoos.
Right.
I love my tattoos. I'm
Right.
not talking. I'm saying because of what they represent. Because I
okay.
didn't get any my tattoos represent stuff. So like I don't like, because I know that I don't want somebody to look at that and to know what it is and to make
and to
stereotype of
Right.
what it is. And it's not just the tats. It's like we can look at each other and we'll see something, but other people do that too. You know what I mean?
And you know what? I didn't know that until now that Josiah went to prison. He got a tattoo, and one of our family friends who's been incarcerated, he told him, you shouldn't have got that because it represents this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I didn't know that. I did not know that. And I mean, my second son, his dad did a lot of time in Santa Fe too. And I didn't know that certain tattoos, and I'm not talking like tattoos that say New Mexico or anything like that. It's like tattoos, like me having a Thunderbird or, and something just like simple, like a prison tower.
It's as simple as a Zia, having the Zia on you,
Yeah. So I didn't know all that until recently. So I'm like, Josiah, please be careful when you get a tattoo. Like, make sure that it doesn't, it's something that somebody's not going to come up to you and tell you why you got that tattoo on you, It's just, it's a lot of, I guess, politics, right? Is that what you would call it?
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. It's politics. And that's what I was saying about it. Like, if we were sat here for a certain amount of time, we would, within each other, would develop a hierarchy and a set of rules that we agree to live by and things like that, And that's what I mean by like the whole, like, if it was like a bad positive, which the bad would be like, okay, I got to go to like this, like Job Corps type of situation for 5 years, but I'm getting educated. My family can still visit me. I can, you know what I mean?
Right.
Things like that. Instead of going into a dungeon, what's perpetuated there is the strong survive So the biggest and baddest, you know, you got to be big, you got to be tough, and you got to be, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the cycle that's perpetuated, because you do have to be. You do have to be, because things aren't fair in life.
Right.
Things aren't fair in life, and things aren't perfect. And that's why the cycle just goes, because if you have to act a certain way because of the environment you're living in, then that becomes your normal. So then how do you expect to be released from prison? Like, we'll say Josiah, he's young. He's young, and they say, like, they say for everybody, they say, like, when you get incarcerated, like, your growth, your spirit, it stunts it, right?
It's like arrested development.
Right. So what is he gonna, you know, when he gets out, you know what I mean? He's gonna get out, you know.
He's gonna be a skateboarder.
He's gonna be, yeah, no,
He's
but
still gonna be a skateboarder.
no, but he's gonna be a skateboarder.
That's okay.
But what is he gonna, what is he gonna feel like when he gets out? He's gonna feel like he's supposed to be a man because he's an adult. But you know what I mean? Psychologically, you know what I mean?
Young.
But he's in a good situation because he has a mom like you to support him, you know? Like my wife's that type of mom too.
Right.
So like, it's a good situation, but
Right.
not everybody has that. And that's why you see a lot of what you see out there. Cause you know what I mean? Right. If you get out, like back in the day, they used to just get you out of prison, and it was like, you better show up to do this and you better get a job to do that. And there was no help. It wasn't like, you'll tell your PO, hey, I need help paying my rent. They'd be like, you're violated because you left your address without telling me.
Yeah, they make everything.
Failure,
They make everything so difficult for you guys. You know, even when you get out, they make everything difficult. You know, because they have to fill the beds there. It's kind of like, well, that's a whole other story. We'll save that for another podcast. If I was going to talk about what we did yesterday, but let's move on to Steve. How do you feel about the stigma that people face once they're released from prison and trying to rebuild their lives?
I don't know, just set up to fail, a statistic. I don't know, the stigma. I don't know.
What do you feel? What was your experience when you were released? Like, do you feel like what was the most difficult thing for you?
I mean, I didn't really have a difficult time every time I got out. Like, I went to college, I was on it. You know, I adapted pretty quick. You know, I always got good jobs. I just
you didn't work at the Octopus?
As a matter of fact, when I got out the state, I did get a job at the Octopus.
He's like, wait, yeah.
I did a couple detailing jobs and stuff like that, you know, for the time being or whatever. But
no pun intended.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But I mean, my problem was always, you know, the influence and people, and you know what I'm saying, having something to prove and being around the homies and getting into this, getting into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I always had good intentions. I just, once I get around certain people, it's, you know, it never goes well.
Right.
But
you kind of acclimate to your environment.
Yeah.
I always look at it too as, you know, obviously an outsider looking in and working with people coming out of incarceration, because that's what I've done, is transitional living. So I think what I always noticed the stigma was, and me, you know, we're all normal, right? We're all normal people. We all live, you know, here, but what's always been told us and taught to us, I mean, across the board, is, oh, you commit a crime, you're guilty. Oh, that guy is that. Oh, that guy's this. Oh, that guy has tattoos. And so what I've always seen is the difficulty is that stigma that you're a felon. And fortunately, we now, you know, that'll hopefully change the dynamic, but you're a felon and you have tattoos. And I would always tell guys like, man, really? Like, why did you put that on your, like, what are you thinking? Right?
Yeah.
Like now you're gonna have to
be a tattoo artist.
Yeah. Now you're gonna have to get a job. You know, why would you do that? And they're just like, man, I can't even tell you. And then they'll tell me the story.
Right.
But it's like, you're not gonna be able to tell that person the story, right? You're not gonna be able to tell your fiance's dad. You know, my dad was like, what is all this? You know, what is all this?
With Mark?
Like, yeah, like, what is all this, right? You know? And I'm just like, but, you know, that's something that, again, you know, we have to really educate our people. And New Mexico, we're a tough breed. We're a tough group. We just really are, you know, and it's just really the stigma is that I've always told everybody, and don't ever identify yourself as that. Right. Don't ever come out and say, oh, you know, I'm a felon, miss, you know, I'm not going to be able to get a job, you know, just that. And I just sit there and just let them.
Self-pity.
Yeah. I just let them. And then I'm like, really? You really want to go into a job interview or to come and tell me this? But that's, you know, what you're taught. You're told that when you're incarcerated. Oh, you're a loser. Oh, you're never going to be out. And my first job was at BCDC. So
back in when it was like the worst, right? The 80s and 90s. Is that what you said?
Yes. So I remember when I first started working in the caseworkers unit, and I've never really had like I've always had a good heart for people, but I remember like the captains always being like, oh, he'll be back next week. Oh, he'll be back. And I'd be like, no. Sure enough, you know, he'd be back the next week. And then it got to be like, what's the deal? Right. And it was always that stigma of I just am really having a difficult time, you know, reintegrating. And personally, you know, the stigma is still out there, which is horrible.
You just got to change your mindset.
Yes.
You know, reprogram yourself.
However, we were in court the other day for my son, and the clerk stands up and she's waving her hands. She's pointing, and we're the only people in the courtroom. She's raising her hand, pointing at Mark, like, who are you here for? What case are you with? And he's like, really? Because he had tattoos. And that's offensive, right? God. So how do we...
She's like, you're supposed to be sitting over here.
Yeah.
They're like, you need to come up here and sign in.
Really?
Yeah. No. You need to sign in for your, who's your, and I was like, what? Sign in for what? Or for your case. And I was like, I don't have a case.
And then it happened again. So it wasn't like just that. It was like that another couple of weeks later, we were back in the court. It was the same people.
The prosecutor came in and she's like,
too.
I'm like, what? Like, look,
so I think, you know, when we talk about, you know, stigma, and I always tell people, you know, if you're going to end up in that lifestyle, you're going to have a different mindset. And how do you do that when you're going, you know, into a facility? Juveniles, I used to work with juveniles, again, when I was first working for the detention center. And I'd always be like, man, you know, and then my degrees in education, so learning, you know, psychological development. And I would always see people who had done a lot of time, who did go get in trouble, you know, YDDC, continual, picked up a murder charge at 17, shipped them off. And then you're there like, oh my gosh. And then they ship them off to another facility. And then they ship them off to a federal facility. And it's like, okay, you better join them, right? You better join them because you're not going to make it. You don't have parents, all of those things, you know, that happen. And then they come out as an adult and they're still 17. So, you know, systematically, and we've talked about it, it's a real problem. I mean, from the juvenile and again, you know, survival skills, right? You survived. And that's just humanity. That's, you know, what God's given us, that right. ability to just survive. And just like Mark, he had to survive. You know, dad was working. Mom wasn't around. How am I going to help, you know, and, you know, of course, and then substance abuse, I mean, alcoholism, you know, his dad was an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. So it's like, how do we learn how to not be that and survive and have those skills? So it really doesn't even come from, like we've talked about, the devil is not prejudice.
Right.
He will perpetrate any single person he can. You can come from the most wealthy family, educated, have everything, and still, you know, end up in that system. But again, it becomes a survival skill, and it could happen, you know, we've talked about it, and, you know, like Josiah, it could happen in the school system where they're, you know, looked down on or not helped and all of those things. So I think really the stigma that people face, that I personally just, and of course, working in it, is how do they rebuild their lives when the system is failed?
Right.
It is a failed system. You come out. So I actually worked, I started the Veterans Treatment Court program here at the Second Judicial here. And what they gave us like this template, right? And they're like, this is what they have to do and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, no, I mean, I could easily tell the guy, hey, you got to go to AA 3 times a week. You got to do this, you got to do that. But then you also got to get a job. Then you got to find a place to live. And you can't even get an ID because that's a whole other thing in itself. So it's really having a difficult time because we as a community are not here to help people, or the system's not out there to help people. And how do you change that system? So I think really coming out when I've seen that is how do we, because it's all of us, right? How do we build our lives? How do we help, that situation is, as, Kim knows and Mark. And so I'll just tell Steve, my kiddo, I was a single mom and he ended up in the juvenile system and he was actually building a skateboard ramp, taking, some materials from a construction site, not thinking because they were on the side of the road, right? So I get a call, and at the time I was working for state police, I get a call and they're like, hey, your son's here. And I'm like, but, and then I became that enabler. But I also looked at it as we needed help. Like, you reach out for help.
Right.
And I know a couple of others in our Stronger Together. It's like we were reaching out for help and our kiddos were needing that, but the system failed. What could they have done to prevented that? And then he got, in trouble smoking weed at the park, calling me, hey, you know what, your kid's here. And I had to go pick him up at the detention center. But at that point, they didn't do anything. It was a slap on the wrist and then call it a day, because why? I looked normal, right? So it's really, again, changing the stigma. How do we as a society, how do we as a community change that? And again, we could talk about it. It's a systematic problem, but it's also educating our people. I was telling Kim the other day, and Steve, and Kyle, and Mark, my mom was like, we were watching the news or something. My mom's like, yeah, he just needs to go to prison. And I'm like, really? Are you serious? But that's what we see, right? That stigma, and the media is out there. Hey, yeah, this guy did this. And no, you're innocent till you're proven otherwise.
Right.
So no, he's not guilty. We see what the media tells us, and we got to take a step back and really see that. So I've really, and again, the system's failed. Probation, parole is a failed system. Corrections is a failed system. The courts is a failed system. We saw that, just when we were in the courts recently. A lot of really mental health, that's an issue. And there's no resources. You get some guy that is homeless, can't talk, is in a wheelchair, and they're drilling on himself in the courtroom, and the judge is going to tell him to go to pretrial. Right. Guy doesn't have a phone. He doesn't have a place to live. Parents are probably gone because he's 80. And how do we change that? We're not going to be able to change that. They have to have the resources, navigate or something, right?
I think like annually they spend like $81 billion on incarcerating people. I mean, in housing, healthcare, education, addiction, mental health. They don't even invest that much money into them. No. So we need to invest in the people, you know what I mean?
And again, and I know New Mexico, we're a tough breed. We just are. And, but with all the groups that I've now, seen and engaged in, and, statistically, we need to help our people. Where is the Springers? Where is the, Hogaris has been gone for God, I don't even know how long, right? All of those, right? Those places that really tried. But again, that was failed too. They treated kids like animals. And then you're gonna get an animal. You're just gonna do that. And I remember working at the jail, and I'd be like, and my dad would always, because my dad actually got me the job, and he's like, just don't look at them. Just don't look at them, And I'm like, them, they're like people, right? But, and my dad and I would always kind of joke about it, but it's like, and then when I started doing transitional living, he's like, you're crazy. Like, that is so dangerous. And I'm like, you know what? That's the safest place that I could ever be in the state of New Mexico.
Right.
Is working with men really, who have had those tough times.
You're like, these are my homies and they got my back.
Yeah. So I think too that's just my personal story on what I've seen, the stigma, just on a personal level, with Mark, personal level, with my kiddo, and then personal level working with the community. It's failed. It's really super sad.
I saw something today. I'm switching gears like I always do. I was trying to find it actually on Instagram, but you guys follow the ABQ hotspot on Instagram? Well, I opened my Instagram.
I don't have Instagram,
Neither does Mark.
Facebook, Snapchat.
I
don't associate with none of that.
I don't know how to do these.
Okay, well, ABQ hotspot follows, and they must have got their account got deleted because I can't find them now, and they always get deleted for this kind of stuff. But I opened up my Instagram and the ABQ hotspot was talking about bringing the death penalty back and saying that they believe it's, what is that? Eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth or whatever.
That's Old Testament.
Yeah. But that's what she or he or whoever that account belongs to put on that post. And I was like, oh my God, like people really think that they can play God in people's lives. I'm mortified that people would want the death penalty for anybody, because I don't think that we should play God in anybody's lives.
No.
No. How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, I have this scripture right here, Hebrews 13:3. People should care for those in prison as though they were in prison themselves. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's who Jesus walked with, right? He ate amongst thieves and prisoners and prostitutes and all of that. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just so bewildering to me how people could really think that. And her account got deleted because Celinda just sent me, I have to read it. Celinda just sent me, because I sent it to Celinda, because Celinda, how she is about stuff like that. And Celinda said to her, "And eye for an eye makes all of us blind. The death penalty is inhumane, and the corrupt, racist, criminal legal system has no moral compass to hold the power to kill. This is horrible propaganda to be spreading." And I'm like, go Celinda. Yes. And that's why I sent it to her, because I'm like, I was so mortified. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, how could she say that? But yeah, her account got deleted. Okay, well, let's talk about the impact of trauma on incarceration and exploring the psychological and emotional toll incarceration has on individuals, families, and communities. And let's start with you, Retta, as family, and then we'll talk to Mark and Steve about it.
Wow. I mean, I can't even grasp it, dealing with it. And it's so different. I tell people all the time, you know what, the devil is, like I said, not prejudice. And you never expect it to happen to ours, right? Man, what did I do wrong? He did these things. He was, brilliant. So it's, again, and then working in law enforcement, so I saw the injustice and I saw all of that corruption. But the emotional toll it takes is just, as a mom, what heartbreak is. That is like a heartbreak, that you can't, it's really hard to repair.
Grief.
And
I feel my grief with Josiah was like horrifying. It was just awful.
And just that, the tangible, the love, just the seeing each other. It's just, I can't even explain it. And the psychological, because then you go through, man, what's going to happen, right? And again, I'm a control freak. I am, I'm a mom. Yeah. I want, things to work now. I know his potential. I know all of our potential.
Right.
But really to not have or understand it psychologically, like, man, what happened, right? Because then, and my son's situation, now hindsight, now looking back, it was just kind of, it's been a long progression, of in and out of jail, getting the call, all of those. And just, again, the emotional toll it takes, because you just want to help. So addiction is something that, as a community, as a society, we've always, it's just what they want to do. They have control over it. It's a disease. And I never used to think that either. I'd be like, he just wants to drink, or,
yeah.
But it really is a disease. So learning that, I can't explain it. It's really, it's heart-wrenching, but but we, as the family, we also have to heal because there is some trauma that maybe that we didn't, address at the time, that we're like, man, now we got to heal. And how am I going to heal before he gets out?
Right.
I'm like, man, what's going to happen? And then, when he goes back in jail, I'm like, okay, I have 30 days to plan this, right? And I'm again, a control freak. I have 30 days to figure out what I'm going to do. And now I'm just like, man, so it really is hard. It's traumatizing because you don't know what's going on. And I do know what's going on because I've worked, around it.
It's just different though, when you see it through the lens of being a mom versus being in that environment as an employee.
For sure.
For
sure. And it's like, and it's, I'm a believer. So I never thought I'd ever do transitional living ever. That was just not what I ever intended, but God put me in this path. And I say now is like, man, if he had not put me in this path, I don't know where I would have made it, because I did have a lot of men just, really rooting and, hey, don't worry about it. Because there would be times that he wouldn't be able to call and I'd be like, what the hell? How come he's not calling? And then I'd call the jail and they'd be like, oh, we had an incident, or I'd be watching the news. I became a freak.
Oh gosh, I know. I did the same thing.
So it was like, man, so it really was, I finally got to the point where the guys would be like, you have no control. What he's doing in there is what he's doing, and he's got to survive. And if he's not calling, it's not that he doesn't want to call you, it's because he's figuring it out. And I heard that, like Mark never talked to any of his family. He didn't even know he had a nephew when he got out. His sister picks him up with
Mark,
his kid in the car. He did. So I think, of that is how do you, but me, like you, I'm close to my kiddo. I got to know, like, if you're not, when he got the tablet, I'm like, I haven't heard from him. So it
sending
really,
messages.
Yes, what's going on? So just the emotional toll, helping my family navigate through it has really been difficult too. And again, I'm a believer, so it's been difficult, but it really, to get my family to, I don't even know if it's a buy-in, but to buy into, this is what it is. This is what it is. Your grandson is incarcerated.
Right.
Your nephew's incarcerated, and we've talked about that. What was that quote that you sent? Burn down the bridge, burn it. I'm going to stick up for my kiddo, and I don't care what bridges I'm going to burn. I'm going to burn them all down because that's my son.
Yeah.
So it's really trying to, and so now what I've realized now is that I don't have control over anything. There is no such thing as tough love, right? That is just such a crock of shit.
I try to implement tough love sometimes, but it doesn't stick for very long, because in my mind as a mom, I'm like, if something were to happen to him and I did, I implemented that and I was like stern about it and I didn't show him love, like loving him through it, like that's going to be on my conscience for the rest of my life. It's hard emotionally to navigate when your child is locked up. Because like you said, you think all of these things, like he's not calling. Oh my God. And then I'm calling Malia. Malia, have you heard from Josiah today? She goes, yeah, I talked to him this morning. And I said, okay, well, what about the afternoon? No, he'll call, but her role is different. Her role is not my role. Right. And if Josiah, I know Josiah so well that when he calls, I can tell in his voice when he's not having a good day. He won't tell me he's not, that he's not having a good day, but I can tell in his voice, and I'm like, oh, so are you having a good day today? I'm trying to like pry it out of him, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm good, Mom. Everything's good. It's boring. That's what he'll say. It's boring, because now, like you guys, when you guys were incarcerated, I think you guys had a little bit more liberty of like going outside and going to rec and, all that kind of stuff, where now he hadn't been outside in 2 months.
Yeah. When we were in prison, we ran the prison. Like they've implemented like a lot of things in prisons, but and that's another thing too, is like how they're starting to just slowly chip away at things that are just like the fact, like they developed the prisons. You're in your pod, you get up, you push the button, and you go about your day. Right. You go to work, you go to the library, you go to the gym, you go whatever, you know what I mean? Now they're like, oh, you can't leave the pod. Nobody can leave the pod. Nobody can do nothing. You know what I mean? And you're just stuck. It's it's even worse. And then they don't call rec, and they're not taking people to go outside to the gym. They used to take you 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours out in the afternoon, 1 hour at night. You know what I mean? Like the whole day was routine, and they're slowly chipping away at things like that.
And then they have them all like, how can a person not be reactionary when they're in a pod all day long, no fucking sun, no outside fresh air, and just amongst each other all day long?
They done broke down the morale, the spirit. Like, it was a lot different when I was there. We were food strikes, riots. We never tolerated none of that. None of that. You know what I mean? So I don't know, like, the caliber of people that are locked up nowadays, but yeah, we didn't tolerate that. We got our way.
That's that's what we did for fun. That's what I tell my wife all the time, because she asked me, and like, I don't really talk, but just know, like, I was that guy. Like, I know I was gonna get whooped, but guess what? You're gonna spend the whole day calling response team, and you're gonna extract me out of this cell, and we're gonna do this. And guess what? Then the next time they come, and you say, you guys want to do this again? They're like, you know what? We're just gonna leave this, and then they, that's the part of the turning into an animal, because see, once you're in there, only the guys that are in trouble and are locked down, and the officers fear, as in, I can't speak to this gentleman this way because he will hurt me. And it doesn't matter where, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Then you're treated with respect,
humanely, yeah.
But guess what? By that time, you're locked in a cell 23 hours a day. You know what I mean? They're so scared of you. You're cuffed before you come out. You know what I mean? But you learn that it's like, okay, well, this is how I want to do my time, because I'm not doing my time on my knees. I'm doing my time on my feet. But you know what I mean? But you don't realize the sight. Like, once you get out of it, like when I sit there and I think back, and I'm like one of those people that evaluate every little move of your life. And I'm like, and I'm just like, man, you want to be like a tough guy. Like, I can't be manipulated. Nobody manipulate. But you look back and it's like, man, like, in all actuality, I was manipulated into a system, and then I became part of that system, and then I became part of the problem of that system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think what's really helped me too, and I, like you said, that it's a different generation, right?
Yeah.
It's just different.
I was just going to ask him that.
And as my husband and now a step parent, he's able to kind of just be like, man, he's on the other side of it. Like, now he sees everything that I've gone through, and he's just like, man,
it's boys with moms who are enablers.
Yeah, exactly.
No, well, I see another side of it, because I was like, the way that I chose to do it was like, I'm not going to call nobody. I didn't speak to my family for 27 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. See, I left home like 15, 16.
Josiah left home at that age too.
I left home, and it was over. It was over the YDDC thing, really. It was like, I went to YDDC, and then instead of going home, like my dad tried to do tough love, and was like, the whole goddess. It was like, you're gonna go to this independent living program, whole goddess, right? So it was like a total betrayal of like, well, I can't go home, and then there's,
what do you mean?
Yeah, and then as a man now, though, I understand, because you look at other life situations. You know what I mean? Because my dad, he didn't have the perfect life, but he just got married. Then he got this mess up son. You know what I mean? So it's like, so now as a man, I kind of understand a little bit, but it was like, as a kid, I was like, oh, it's a total betrayal. I can't come to my home
because you have a new wife.
Yeah. So then it was like, and I'm not going to independent living. So I went and lived with, friends. I went and lived with friends.
Couch surfed?
Yeah. Couch surf. We have cars and all that, and you have money, but it's like, it's a total different generation, because my generation, we didn't want to be poor.
But I think that the generation now is the same way, but they're like,
but they're not poor.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like we grew up, like
I know.
where guys like us came from. We talk about we got to get ours from the mud. We got to get it from the mud. You know what I mean? Which means we had to get ours from the dirt and the mud. And growing up, like he knows that. I'm telling you, I look at it because I'm like, I look at people, I'm like, man, when I was a kid, it was like, dude, our role models were like the British Bulldog, and you wanted to be, you know what I mean? And if you look at the generation, and I know, and I'm not getting political, but I feel like there's a lot of things like, you know, morally poisoning our people. But
Yeah.
The generation has gotten to the point of like,
I blame rap music. Really, one of the things. I don't blame it completely, but I do blame it.
It is. You are right about that, because what it does is, okay, if you've never lived that life, everybody thinks they could be a baller, right? They think just selling drugs and just lifestyles, like you're gonna be whatever, the Migos or what,
abolish shot caller.
No, you mean the Migos or whatever went to the other, you know.
Yeah,
But let me tell you, it's just like everything else. The majority, there's people that they probably really, really well, but the majority of people, if you add up all the time, you're working less for minimum wage.
Yep.
Right? You may be getting that money right then and there, and you may be cool, and you like, you know what I'm saying? It's that fast fix, but it's the point of like this generation has seen something that guys from like, you know, because at the 90s, you know, the 90s is where it really like, but that was our way of rebelling and being a different generation is what people don't understand, is all this stuff was created. All of us were all about it, but that was our way of rebelling, like, and being a different generation was like the rap music and just everything, the way we dressed and everything. Now you got these guys, they're wearing skinny jeans and they're sagging and they're wearing polo shirts.
And you're not cool if you're not wearing name brand like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. We didn't do that back then.
But we didn't have it like that.
Right.
Man, it was like, man, I would be mad. I'd rather take a hand-me-down pair of like, you know, some Levi's or name brand clothes than have to go like, oh yeah, we're going to Walmart or somewhere, you know? and so when you get older, you're like, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to get what I want. I want the nice car. I want this and I want that, you know? And it just, people look at, you know, the youngsters of this generation look at all that and it's expected, is how I feel. Like it's expected. Like everything's like expected of, like, you know, you have to talk nice to everybody and you have to, you know, like the generate, you know, like we grew up in a different, you know, it was okay you didn't like this person and it was okay, but you still knew how to respect somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So
now,
there's a big loss of respect with this generation.
There's
for
no,
sure.
there's no respect.
Code of conduct, no ethics, no nothing. No.
And then you have to realize too that it's not just on that side, but it's also on the other side too, of all these new officers, and they're a new generation too.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's what the Warden Smith was talking about.
They're a new generation too of like of abuse, because, you know, there's a period of time, and that's the time period that, you know, prison was kind of crazy, you know, like, and it still can be, and bad things happen, but it was crazy all the time. Like he was saying, like it was like, oh yeah, you didn't put the turkey on I remember one year we're supposed to get real turkey for Thanksgiving, right? So they're like, you're going to get a half pound of turkey and it's going to be real turkey, because everybody's like, you know, and it ended up being, you know, that sliced, like, kicked everybody, the whole prison kicked all the trays back. We're going to set this thing up, you know, it's going down, you know, and they come fix it, you know, like cable goes out. They come in, please, we're going to have it on in the next 2 days. Just, you guys, just.
Oh, they're definitely going to negotiate with you.
Yes. You know, but it was our willingness to stand together. That's the number one thing.
That's what they were afraid of, that, you know, when you come together.
Because we all were in the same boat.
Yeah.
And we knew that. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you didn't like me. When it came down to fighting the system, we all did it together. And we did fight the system. But this new they figured out how to break this new generation up because they separate everybody in prison now.
Yeah.
They get them they don't stand together no more. You know what I mean? They separate them. They get everybody to fight amongst each other, and they know all they have to do is start pitting people against each other, and they do this. Like, if you guys don't, this don't happen, or this don't happen, or something they don't want to do, or like, we're going to take away this. And you already don't have nothing, because they're just slowly chipping away. And that's where the, all that bad stuff comes from, because you have nothing. You have nothing.
Right.
You have no contact with your family. You're just living there. You're just there. So why not? The only thing and I feel like in my heart that they want all these guys in jail doing drugs.
Yep.
And all this stuff that they really
it's like a pacifier.
They truly want it to happen, because in the end, it not only is it just makes everybody weak.
Yeah.
And
you're absolutely
and divided, but also it's like they don't care, because it's like, okay, if you really cared, you'd be like, man, like we gotta like, how do you stop people from getting high all day?
They just want them medicated, kind of like the teachers in APS. They just want you to put your kid on Ritalin or Adderall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
It's another form of oppression, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because,
Yeah.
like, God forbid that we teach them something and we bring people into the prisons and actually, like, just like they didn't want to let us, they had a thing like people were going to be CPSWs. And they were like, oh, yeah, go to this school and all this. And then you get out, and then the probation department is saying, well, anybody that has a CPSW, you can't use it because you're not allowed to work or be around anybody else that's on probation or parole or any kind of law enforcement.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I'm doing something positive for my life. I'm trying to give back to the community, right? And try to make a change. But with somebody like him could go into the street and have more of an impact of talking to the youth than somebody that just comes from no knowledge.
Right.
And
My son's calling in. Let me answer it.
Okay.
We're gonna get back to that. Hello?
Hello. This is a prepaid collect call from Josiah, inmate at a correctional facility. Freeway.
I'm like
Hi,
that
son.
too. Just start.
Hi, son.
Hi, Mom.
How are you?
Hey.
Good.
And you?
Good. So I just wanted to let you know we're sitting here on the podcast, and Mark is here, and Retta and Steve. So say hello to everybody.
Hi.
Okay.
They could hear you.
How you doing, Josiah?
How's it going?
I'm Mark.
Steve,
Good.
nice to meet you.
Just chilling.
All right, babe. Well, the first question I want to ask you is, tell us a little bit about your journey into the system and what led to your incarceration.
So before I started getting involved in all the stuff I was doing, I was just like mainly focusing on skateboarding and really just doing that. But as I got older, around 15, 16, I started drinking and doing cocaine and just started partying a lot. And as I was doing that, when I would go to parties, I would see a lot of different shit, just like different shit that I wasn't really used to seeing, and just seeing it was like, damn, like that's, you know what I mean? I was kind of just drawn to it, so I started hanging out with a lot of people that were fucking around and doing a lot of crazy shit. So started hanging around with a lot of people and meeting different people, and eventually I kind of just started doing the same shit that they were doing, just running around the streets with guns and just doing a lot of like crazy shit. And so after that, it got worse and worse, and I kind of got like addicted to that lifestyle and everything that it kind of comes with it, just the rush of doing the things that I would do out there. And eventually I just did one wrong thing and it led to being in here. So that's really what had happened.
Well, thank you for sharing that, babe. And how has being incarcerated impacted your view on the criminal justice system?
It's just kind of just showed me how, like, because when I was out there, I wouldn't ever really think, like, you know what I mean? You don't really think like, damn, I could go to prison for a long time for the stuff I'm doing, especially when you're young. But it kind of just made me realize that it's just not worth it at all. Like, the getting what I was getting out there is not worth what I have to pay for it. You know what I mean? So it kind of it just opened my eyes to just doing like good, and I don't know. But yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, babe. And what types of rehabilitation or educational programs have you participated in since you've been locked up? And you've been in DOC now for what, a year and a half?
A year and 2 months.
Oh, a year and 2 months. Okay.
Yeah. And I've signed up for a couple different programs and stuff, like CDL classes, welding, which welding it's kind of a little while, probably like 6-7 months to get to it, but I finally have got into it.
There's a bad connection. Can you hear me?
Nothing really else.
Can
Yeah,
you?
can you hear me?
There's a bad connection. You're like breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's still a bad connection. Are you there? Maybe he'll call.
Like,
Oh,
back.
wait, there. It's better. It's better.
It's better.
Yeah, go ahead.
But so other than that, there's really nothing else. There's not really a lot of things that you could do. But
And
so,
how long
yeah,
did it take
just
you
that.
to get the paper? I know that you finally got into an electrical class, but how long did it take you to get into that?
Probably like six months.
So when you first got there, you weren't offered any type of like schooling or any type of like reform or programming or anything like that?
The only thing that was offered to me right away was RDAP, the RDAP program.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, no.
So it's taken you this long to get into educational classes?
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face in prison on a daily basis?
Some of the biggest challenges probably, like the COs. Honestly, is probably one of the main things that's super freaking hard to deal with, because they're just always just on some bullshit, just always trying to fucking just, you know what I mean? It just sucks.
They antagonize everybody.
Yeah, it's like they almost do it just so you can do something to them. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's crazy. It sucks. It's like almost like they want you to just flip, and so they can throw you in seg. Yeah, it sucks.
And babe,
They treat people like shit.
Yeah, we know that. They treat us like shit too sometimes. What would you say to a young person today, looking back on all the choices that you made when you were like 15 and 16? Because you were out in the street acting wild for what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? It's just not worth it. It's not freaking. Well, at first it might seem like cool and shit, but once shit gets real, it's not. It's not cool. It sucks having constantly look over your shoulder. It's not worth it.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask Mark and Steve if they can give a little bit of input into you doing your time, because you do still have 6 years. What words of wisdom would you give Josiah, Mark?
Just depends, like, like, just maintain your body and your mind and don't let them break you. But
Yeah, definitely.
you know what I mean? Like, as much as much knowledge as you can gather, take advantage of it. But also just take care of your body and be yourself. I know that
Hell yeah.
I know that it sounds weird, but you'll see the environment and you'll see how the majority of people, they'll all want to be like each other in there, and they'll try to one up. You're gonna hear stories after stories of this and that and all that. And you know what? Don't even think about none of that. Just focus your mind on keeping yourself strong and just be yourself. And you know what? It'll be fine. But take advantage of whatever education. If they're gonna get you that welding degree, try to walk a straight line as much as you can till you get that degree or that certificate. But like I said, just do your time. Don't let don't let everybody else push their time on you.
And Josiah, I'm not sure if I told you this or not, but Mark and Steve both did time with Ray, so they're very time qualified. Just kidding. How many years did you do, Mark?
I did 10 years.
10 years. And how many did you do, Steve?
20.
20. So Mark did 10 years, Steve did 20. And Steve, what would you say to Josiah?
Keep your dignity. Exploit any type of program that they offer. You know what I mean? Take advantage of that for sure. Exercise, read. Don't procrastinate for sure. Procrastination is the thief of time. What else? Exercise. Start preparing, like, before you get out. Put a plan together. You know what I mean? And stick to that.
Hell yeah.
Definitely stick to that. That's what a lot of people don't have. You know what I mean? You want to start making that transition for the streets a lot easier. You know what I mean? But yeah, you ain't got nothing to prove in there. You know what I mean? Just do your time and focus on what you need to accomplish. You took responsibility for your crime or whatever. Yeah, just be open-minded and learn everything you can. Take advantage of that for sure.
Hell yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys speaking life into Josiah, because as you know, I am a single mom, and I try to speak life into him in a different way, as nurturing. But, as men, you guys all know that a man needs words from a man, right? Not just mom enabling them and coaxing them all the time.
Well, I got a question. Like, Josiah, what's your routine like?
Honestly, I kind of just kick it. You know what I mean? Now that we had just got these we've been waiting for the tablets for freaking months, dude. So really, right now, I'm kind of just trying to figure out everything that I can do on the tablet, and you know what I mean. So
getting all your music together. Gotta get all the music together.
Yeah, hell yeah. But next week, I think I should be starting that welding class next week, so I'm pretty stoked about that. So other than that, I just kind of kick it.
And what's the homies' routine like now? We'll just, the best advice is don't fall into that sleeping all day and getting up at lunch and all that. If you keep your mind busy, and like I said, get you a routine, brother. Get you a routine, and it's gonna be like the same thing every day for the next 6 Super Bowls or whatever it is. But hey, get that routine together. and the time will go. Especially you got a mom that's got your back. So, but get that routine together, and don't fall into the sleeping all day and the thing like that. Just if you stay busy, it'll go faster. Trust me. I know sometimes it feels like when you stay calm and idle and just kicking back that the time's flying, but sometimes that's the worst way to do it, because then like the time will fly and then all of a sudden you're just gonna come to a halt and it's gonna seem like not to go nowhere.
Yeah, definitely don't be stagnant. You just gotta
terminated in 2 minutes.
All right. Well, babe, we're going to run out of time. And please let Adrian know that in 2 weeks, I'm going to have him on the next podcast because we're running out of time here in the studio. And we still have a few bullet points to talk about. But I will get him in on the next one in a couple of weeks. Okay? All right. Well, I love you. Thank you for sharing.
I love you too.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Bye. Like how you told him, what's your homie's routine?
Well, that's the first thing, is like, what's the homie's routine? Because that, like he was saying, he's like, I just kick it with the homies, and that's what it comes down to. Is most of the time we all stick together, and when you have the majority of people not wanting, you know what I mean? I would like, right. I'm telling you, like me and like Shane Dix and Jeffrey and all, we all worked out. And, you know, Ray, we would all work out that's how we did our time. Mm-hmm. We would work out, and you know, we were mess ups, and maybe we partied a little bit and, you know, did our time like that.
You guys partied in there?
Of course.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Of course, you know, we're like the original crew. Like we're in there, you know, like we're like old schoolers.
Josiah will tell me sometimes, some guy made some hooch, so we got drunk last night. I'm like, you did. I'll be careful with that. It could have poison for your stomach.
No, but yeah, you know, but that's the thing that shows you the creativity, because, you know, look at everybody. They want to be tatted like us now, you know, like back in the day, tats, you know, prison collages, like collage tatting and all that type of stuff. It wasn't like that. People got, you know, but then they started seeing, you know what I mean? And then, you know, just like, and even with the hooch, look at like moonshiners. That's what hooch is the stuff, but, you know, before they distill, you know, that's all it is. You're just
fermented.
You're just drinking mash.
Hey, well, Ray told me one time, he's like, why do you have tattoos like that? You look like a sketch pad. You should get collaged. And I'm all, because I don't want to get collaged. I like my sketch pad.
Oh no, it's a big thing. Like when people are getting tattoos, you'll have a guy like me that's like, no, it's not about the tattoo. It's in the placement of where it's on your body. And you have a guy over here talking about, you got to have thick lines, and you know what I mean? Like everybody has, like, you know, but if you see the potential of like these artists that are coming out, you know, and that's just another, like, those are some of the good things, you know what I mean? So that shows you that these people that are incarcerated, that society has said is no good no more, or has nothing to offer. That's what I'm saying, is like, it's proof that shows you that that's not true.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there's, the crack, like, you'll see guys that'll break soap into piles of powder, make a clay out of it, and then carve a bald eagle, Mexican eagle, brown eagle statue out of it and paint it.
And, like Edward Scissorhands?
Yes. You know, and those are things that we need to cultivate within, instead of cultivating the cycle of going back. Right. But it also, we need to fight against the people like the probation and parole and the DOC, because they're the ones that sit there and incarcerate people and put people through the ringer, so to say, you know, because you can do one thing that may not be wrong, and they'll put you in jail for a while, right? But like, who has time to go to jail for 45 days if you're paying rent, mortgage, car payment, or you have responsibilities, right? You know what I mean? And that's just another way, like, how the system, like, it impacts, because once you go to the system, you're starting from zero. like you just turned 17 and you're about to leave your parents' house, but except you have no, you know, at least your parents gave you a little bit of money and some food, right?
Right.
And a home cook, like, okay, there you go. But they're sending you out with nothing and no skills, no hope, and the continual of, you know, everywhere you go, you're treated like shit. You go to the PO office, you stand in line, sit over here, do this. Like you're just, you know what I mean? Continue. Then you're told, and some people go through it, you know, like I learned real quick, you know, I'm a felon, whatever. So I'm like, you know, you go look for jobs. You're like, oh, that's my people over there. The trucks and the trailers.
Hey, they got a job.
Yeah,
right there,
no, that's my people. The trucks and trailers and the, you know what I mean? The guys that, you know, you don't go to the Citibank.
Right.
You know, like I'm like that. My people are over here. You know what I mean? But that's another way of how it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, oh, I go to places and I'm like, I don't. This isn't. I don't. She'll tell you. I'm like, I don't belong here. Like I want to leave. Why? This ain't our people, babe.
She's all, they're my people.
these ain't our people. We got, you know, like, you know, that's another way of like how it just.
Right.
Yeah. Impacts.
I do believe that, you know, back to the whole stigma and then the toll of incarceration. I mean, it has changed. You were saying too, you were even saying, you know, the difference in the last place you were at and these people coming in, you know, it used to be, yeah, we're going to work out, we're going to do this, all this stuff. And excuse my language. And now everybody's butt fucking in the shower.
Yeah.
Like, don't go shower between this time and that time.
Oh,
right. And he was like, what the hell? Like, that's just crazy. Like, you know, right. So it's just different.
No,
But
you're
again,
right.
I do believe that our society has come out to be like, you could be yourself. Right. And we can. However, there's still that respect. There's still that, where the hell do you come from? Right. And I do believe that this generation really doesn't know where the heck they came from. They really
You're
don't.
absolutely right. Because they're trying to identify with rap music. I know I keep going back to rap music, you guys, but I have a thing for that. I really
agree.
do, because I listened to some of their music that they listen to, and all they talk about is licks and
Sex,
what else?
drugs, licks.
Yeah, drugs, lean, that new drug, or I mean, it's not new, but they talk about lean and leaning and doing this and doing that and the other. And I'm just like, and our kids, I used to tell my kids all the time, you guys listen to this music and get all pumped up and get, you know, they put that in your head and it's scientifically proven, right?
Uh-huh.
And you guys emulate that, you get in trouble and go to jail. And these rappers are sending their kids to prestigious schools.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They're making money off of our kids.
Yes.
And I couldn't like ingrain that enough into my kid, especially kids that are middle school, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, you know?
Trying to figure it out.
Right. They're trying to find their identity.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the whole like gun thing with this generation?
Accessibility. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I mean, disgusted at the fact that, you know, and yeah, you have the internet, that it's just so out there. It's
At
the
their
devil.
disposal.
And I mean, you can get pretty much anything, shockingly, you know, on the internet. You can just order a gun,
Except a
ghost
job.
gun, except a job. Yeah.
Right.
You know, drugs, you know, you can find, you know, people. And again, that's just the culture that, that, you know, the cartel and, you know, they're preying on our children. They're preying on our people, because if they're not going to get it, you know, here, you know, I've always said, and again, I'm so against the, medicinal marijuana. I call bullshit on all of it. It's a gateway. I don't care what anybody thinks. Just statistically, what I've seen, it's 100% of the time. But what's happened is that now we have legalization of weed, right? It's not the weed that we all smoked,
Right.
Or you and I, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's like now it's like this potent stuff, and they're making it. It's not, you know, it's man-made. It's not,
Right.
you know. So we legalize it, and then they're going to go to the next best thing. So, and the Mexican cartel, drug cartel, everybody else they're already ahead of the game. We're like so far back. California's already been doing this stuff. I mean, they had the good, weed 20 years ago. Can't think of that movie, but yeah, but so it's just the next, and what's next? So it just continues the cycle and the accessibility. So the guns is so easy for our children to get a hold of, and it's like, okay, right? Like, how did it ever become okay? How did
because rap music glorifies it. Going back to the rap music,
right?
But they do,
yeah.
But like on the gun issue, guns have always been easy accessible.
But I don't think back in our day, like when I was young, like, I got shot at and stuff like that when I was with my boyfriend, but not
that's where I'm saying as a community and as a society. See, we go through time periods, and like that's what people don't realize is we go through time periods of different, we'll just say Democrats, Republicans, okay, red and blue. So when Democrats are in office, guns are pushed, like, you know what I mean? Like they're not. And then when Republicans are, the gun rights are pushed that everybody should own guns. Now, what happens is somewhere along the line, because I grew up as a gun was a rite of passage, and you knew like that was something that your dad taught you. So like any like some people have uncles, brothers or whatever, but like a gun was like a rite of passage type thing for a man, but you also were taught about it. And I think and our society has made guns so bad, like all guns are bad and people shouldn't, you know what I mean, instead of focusing on educating. See, educating the youth. See, we grew up, we were educated. We knew guns bad. Like my dad took me hunting, educated me about guns. Everybody knew, guns were in the house, but it was like a different time period about the guns. Now it's like guns are cool, right? We all can admit that guns are cool. Like,
I don't think they are. I'm scared of guns.
But
I'm just
is it something?
I
Do you believe that could attract, like, say, maybe we'll get 30 people in a room and you pulled out a pretty nice little gun and majority?
Maybe for you guys, I'm the opposite. Like if I'm like, say
I'm the
right
same
now,
way.
we were just hanging out and you came out with the gun, my PTSD would go blink. Like the trauma,
for sure.
Right.
I would be like, oh my God.
But that's not.
I just know that's going to go off and the bullet's just going to ricochet and it's going to hit me. Like I'm literally terrified of guns.
And that's understandable. But
Yeah.
what I mean is we understand how guns can allure our children,
Right.
because they are cool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
But why do you think that kids are?
because this is what the problem is. There's no education on it, and we've gone through a time period of like they're trying to take away guns. So remember when they said we couldn't smoke weed and we couldn't do that, and then that was the first thing you did. So now guns are like they're trying to take away guns, and now they're making good. They're making it's technology too, because the technology is out there. A kid could buy a program on the internet and 3D print a gun. You know what I mean? If he has the proper certifications and all that, right? So there's no education behind the guns. They are more easily accessible, as in you could go on the internet, but I believe it's the education of our youth and the breakdown of that, because we're always going to have guns, just like we're always going to have cars. But we seem to educate our youth about driving better and the dangers of fast car. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things in the world. So I feel like the issue on the guns is, and you're 100% right, there's too much stuff glorified with guns of doing bad things.
Right.
When what should be showed about guns is what guns are really, they're hunting, target, like sporting events, things like that.
Right.
But all we see is the rappers talking about, they're up there for murder. They shot up this, they did that. It's cool to do drive-by. It's cool to have automatic weapons and all those things. And that's what I mean about the education of, like, when I was in school, they had, ROTC and all these, like, Boy Scouts.
What happened to all that? I was in Girl Scouts.
Yes, like Boy Scouts and all that. And those are the first things you learn about is knives and guns and how to, And that's the breakdown of our society, because like how many families do you think sit down at a table and eat dinner at a table together nowadays?
I know. No, you're absolutely right about that, because my family, like my mom made dinner every night, right? And we sat
5
down, my
o'clock.
brother and I and my mom and dad, we sat down together. They asked, how's your day at school? You know, did you have a hard day? What challenges did you have? Like there was communication. And although I was like that with my kids, I worked 2 jobs. So I wasn't always home for dinner. Like literally my kids ate pizza a lot. You know, I mean, I'd make them food on Mondays, especially because that was my day off. But, you know, my house was that I'd rather my kids and their friends be at my house than my kids be at anybody else's house. So like my house was full of boys, stinky feet all the time with all the little skateboarders, you know, and I got to a point where I was like, take your shoes off in the garage and your socks and wash your feet before you come in here. But, I didn't do that with my kids a lot, you know, sit down and have dinner with them, because my kids, especially Josiah, was a latchkey kid, right? He got home and he was alone for like probably 3 hours before I even got home. And I'd go pick him up. If we had to go to the grocery store, we'd go to the grocery store. Like that was our bonding time. Like, you know, or we'd go out to dinner and not eat at the table, but we'd go out to dinner and eat together, me, him, and my other son, Ryan. But you're absolutely right about that too.
And those are things that you see, like we wonder why we had to do that. Like why do we have to do this? But in all actuality, kind of like
it did.
everybody.
But then also on the flip side of that, the kids that did grow up did you grow up with that?
And then look at you. No, I'm saying that it's not going to be no different outcome.
Right.
But I'm just speaking on the things of like some of the things like guns and things like that.
Right.
These things are like it, you know, a guy, like for a guy, speaking for a guy, like say if my dad never educated me about guns, I would have been one of those kids that was probably running around or had a gun somewhere because I liked it. I thought it was cool. You know what I mean? I seen it, but my dad my dad kind of maybe knew or maybe, you know, so it was like, so instead of that gun being that, you know, that allure, and then when you're being able to get it on your own and able to do it, and that's the thing, these kids are like, I don't need it. I'm going to go get this gun on my own. I'm going to do that. But they have no education about it. They just know what it could be used for.
I think we've taken away just educating our kids, period. I mean, we're
find
so
out the hard
worried.
way.
Yeah, we're so worried about, you know, children's rights. I'm sorry. You know, I you have a parent, you have
They
somebody.
need to be better informed.
I agree. So they're worried and having, you know, being allowed to have a sex change, but you're not going to go and teach you on what the effects of drugs or guns or whatever. So it's just we're in a different culture.
I mean, you think about people too that are heroin addicts and whatnot. They're giving them out, passing out free needles, and you know what I mean? Like, oh, be safe, and here's needles, a box of syringes. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Yeah. They become the enablers instead of the moms.
I agree. And I also, you know, to tap onto that, what happened to the enforcement of, you see people, I mean, back in those days, people weren't shooting up heroin on the corner. You weren't there smoking weed or whatever you're doing. That was like, oh my God, right? Like, I hope my parents don't see me. You're sneaking underneath the car, smoking a joint. It's like, man, people are out there just accessible doing it. We don't. And what happened? And again, I think it's just, again, the cultural that we've taken away a lot of the rights of parents, a lot of the rights of educators, not discipline, and educators. I mean, my degree was in education, and I remember, you know, those were things that they talked like, what are you going to do if this happens? Well, you know, and of course I came from a different generation. So it's like, yeah, you know, we're going to stick to what happened to civics in school. You know, what happened to the rights of, you know, all of that. We're just teaching our kids something totally different. And I pray, and I do believe that we're in a stem of going back to that way, because there's just, and I don't want to talk politics, but there's too many liberals running our schools and our systems, that it's we got to educate our our kiddos. We just really do.
Steve, I know that you and You and Clay, you said you guys hire a lot of like younger people to work
Yeah.
with you guys. What is their work ethic like? And do you see a huge, I mean, obviously you do see a huge difference between somebody like you and Mark, but what do you see from them, like their performance or even their
They just need guidance, you know what I mean? But it's a lot of work, you know what I mean? Like just the caliber, and you know what I mean? It's just it was tough. This music definitely influences them. And yeah, it's I can't remember it's like right there off the freeway and like Comanche. I don't know the name of the facility, but we had took on a kid from that facility, Isaiah, and but he once you're repetitive and you know what I mean, you're showing that love, and he sees that you're consistent, you know what I mean, or they see that you're consistent, they're like, okay, you know what I mean, like they actually care, and they, you know what I mean. Yeah, it's
so a kid that's coming out of probably something like a housing unit, kind of like Hogares, right?
halfway house or
yeah. Do you feel like they have to like gain your trust in order for you to like really penetrate
yeah,
their
because
mind?
they're so damaged and they've been, you know what I mean, betrayed, hurt, misinformed, lied to, you know what I mean? So you got to build that trust and that rapport with them and stuff, you know what I mean? So it definitely takes time, but you just got to, take the initiative and want to have the desire and the will to do it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And be genuine about it, and you'll get it done, you know what I mean? If that's what you want, if you're wanting change and you want to see this person do better, you know what I mean? But yeah,
I
it's a lot
think
of work.
too, yeah, the education part of it, right? I mean, and I know, just trying to find, somebody that can actually be a case manager, it's and COVID helped nobody.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see that too,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
hiring, because they were behind a desk. They were, doing the internet school, online education, sorry.
Remote working
remote
and all that.
working
Yeah.
and all that. And then now it's like, oh my gosh, we got to go back to work, right? I think
Mhm.
that's now the president's thing, and people are like revolting. It's like, my gosh, get to work. What happened to us as
Right.
a nation, as a community? Education is key to success. We all know that. I never used to believe that.
Knowledge is power.
Yes, it is. And,
Absolutely.
I used to think, man, I have all of this experience, and I may not have an education, but I have all this experience. But what education, even in high school, shows you that you have a dedication to something greater than yourself.
Right.
If you can graduate or get a GED or something, that shows that you have that drive to want to better yourself. But we're just like, never mind. I remember when my son started, because, going to school, and he, was active in sports and stuff. But I remember he had a little stint where he's like, oh, he hated school, right? It was like, man, I've been doing this forever. Just, all of those things that kids face. And then, of course, I'm like, oh, then just go get your GED, right? Whatever, right? So he goes to college and realized that there were a lot of kids or students just going and getting their GED, and now they're like second year in college. And he's, a freshman in college, and here's this person already a sophomore. And he's like, man, so really a GED or a high school education isn't even worth anything anymore. What happened to that? And that's where I think I do know that as a system we've failed. So we talk about the role of education. I don't mind to go over, but education is key within the DARE programs, all of those great programs. You don't want to be that person, right? Unless you were already into that, right? You didn't want to be that gangster or that person. You were, again, like you said, trying to form that identity. But school our education system has failed, as you know. And then it just continues because it is an institution. But the institution, like Mark said, it's not a great place to be, because we don't know how we've lost control. And, our kids are pretty much, or our government has ran basically our families and education. And again, we talk about the prison system, and then, in the juvenile detention center, I went for a job interview when I first got my degree to get my my hours or whatever for my internship. And I thought, man, that would be so awesome. And they were so strict. And I'm like, I just want to, I mean, you're going to not even have to pay me. Like, you know, I'm going to do this for free. And they just had this curriculum that I'm like, man, just basic, you know, why are you going to start? And yeah, some kids needed to start at the beginning, but why are we even having to start at the beginning? If they should already be here. What happened? So breaking that cycle. And I do know the prison system in New Mexico has completely failed. They have put, like you said, all that money, where the heck is it? And I do know where it's at. It's our cabinet secretary's desk. She's got this fancy desk. I remember that was a Google thing, right?
It's filled everywhere, though. I did a lot of Fed time too, and all the programs that they used to offer, like they dismantled it, took everything out. You know what I mean? It's everything in general. Like it's all bad.
It is, and and then when you go to come out, and I'll say, you know, and again, you know, try not to talk politics, but we talk about like Florida and Texas. Man, I had some people coming, you know, into the program that had to come back to New Mexico to final out or whatever, but they got, you know, some really good skills from the Texas Department of Corrections where they, you know, were able to get a job, where they were able to succeed. But then what happened? Our system here in New Mexico, probation parole, failed them. And now they're back in the system because they had all of these barriers that they had to deal with. So it's really, in New Mexico, again, we're different. We're a whole different breed.
What do you guys think it is? Like, what is your?
I think generational. I don't know if we've talked about it, but I think, you know, I have, you know, my family, you know, Democratic, you know, people. I'm like, my gosh, really? Do you really care? And I think maybe we might have talked, but I'm like, here we are as a New Mexico is primarily a Democratic party. And again, I'm trying not to get into the whole politics, but we're a Democratic party where the Democratic Party always used to believe in the people, right? Do they really believe in the people when they're over here saying, oh, mass incarceration, oh, that person needs to be thrown in jail, throw away the key, that kid needs to just, you know, the mom needs to be, what happened to the parents? Parents lost control a long time ago in the school system, and you all took over. So I believe that's what's happened. I really do. I believe that we are a state that just sees that Hispanic name on the ballot. I don't care who it is, Sanchez, Chavez, whatever, Cordova, you're going to vote for that person. You stick a Regan or a Riley or a Brandt or somebody, they're like, oh, you know, we don't want any of that. We're going to stick to that Cordova person. Who's that Cordova person? I don't know. And I hear it.
I don't know, but they're Hispanic. Just vote for him.
And I hear it. It's like, my gosh, are you serious? And it was like that, you know, and I know with my family, it's like, my gosh, you're really going to do that. So I believe it's, you know, generational. You know, you want to be that person, but what do you stand for? And really educating again, what do you stand for when you go to vote? I was just disgusted with the fact that they didn't go into the, you know, jail and go ask everybody to vote. But what we were saying is that the majority of people that were voting were not voting for the Democratic Party. So then they said, oh no, we're just not even going to do it anymore. Because now we have all these people who are voting for, not for
Republic.
Yeah. So I believe it's
this
just
one was
because,
like that.
But I believe it's our generation. It's our lack of education. Do we really want to try to talk our parents into changing their? I always tell them, I'm not here to change your political.
Hey, my mom didn't even want to switch over to organic food. Girl.
Yeah.
When I started eating organic food, my mom said, "Oh, you just think you're too good now. I've eaten like this my whole life, and I'm fine."
You're like,
my
really,
mom? My mom
Yeah.
literally flipped out on me when I started because I changed my kids' cereal. I changed their milk. I mean, everything, right? This was probably about 18. Josiah was 2, so it was 20 years ago.
So we think of that. How do we change that in our generation? It just is what it is. And then we go and teach our kids, and we teach our kids, and we teach our kids. No, you know what? You need to give your kids an open book. We're an open book. Figure it out. How are you? Why are you voting that? Oh, well, they have their own way, you know? So it's just really saying, what are we really lacking? When we're zero in education, what the heck happened? When we are, our CYFD department is in shambles.
They got to rewrite the script for sure, because they've had over 40 years with Reagan, Nixon, and all them, war on drugs, war on crime, and this and that. So they need.
But then they're the ones bringing it in
because, you know,
Money.
You got, you know, school shootings, you got carjackings. You never used to see this when we were, you know what I mean? Like,
man, I think when I was growing up, man, it was like maybe one incident like that, that I could remember, and it was like the first one, the Sandy Hook or whatever, the very first one I kind of remember.
Columbine or
Columbine or one of
yeah.
those, but those things didn't really happen. But this is where technology you want to know why kids know about guns.
Technology.
You want to know about why kids know about all these cool guns is because they go on the internet and it's right there.
They're like, oh, Snapchat.
Yeah, we had
I'm gonna buy that
SKSs,
AR.
high point nines. Now they have all these fully autos, ARs, 228, 308s.
Yeah.
We never had.
They have it all. They have it all. All they got to do is they look up, they see something like Black Ops, and is that a real gun? And they just go on the internet, and it boils down to.
I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Right,
Is
yes.
the internet that has a lot to do with it? You know what I mean?
It's almost all of it because it even just we could even I'm not be appropriate here, but come on, our kids can look at pornography way younger than you remember all the stuff we had to go through just to get porn magazine?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It was like Fort Knox.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? And then you're at an age of maybe not too, but it's the ages that are seeing the stuff is way too inappropriate, and they know way too much.
Yeah. And then isn't there also like a video game that you could get a prostitute or something like that?
Yeah, that's Grand Theft Auto.
Come on,
Mm-hmm.
And why do you want a prostitute in the back of your car? I remember my son had the game, and I'm like, what does that have to do with the game, right? But yeah, it's again like you all said.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the government. If they wanted to pass or how they just shut down TikTok and it's back up now. The government can, put restrictions on this stuff. They know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing. There's a bigger picture.
It's control.
Yeah.
That's how. Look, you can control people with religion. You can control people with and what mass incarceration is. And if you want to research it, you know what I mean? Because I don't know a lot about it, but I've heard a lot of, you know what I mean? So your social security number, right? Yeah, you know what that is. It's a slave surveillance number. And you can look this stuff up. This is all true facts of how society. Now, how do they control society? Now, back in the day, you want to know how they controlled society? With religion. And I'm not talking about a hierarchy of government controlled large governments, like say King of France, King of England, all these places, right? With religion, right? Oh, you want to be part of the Catholic Church? That's how it was controlled, right? You want to go to, that's how they use it. Now they have mass incarceration, which if you look at the majority of people that are mass incarcerated are people that cannot afford lawyers or get a good lawyer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or is not equipped, mentally. So what's in our jails is a bunch of poor people that can't afford to pay somebody that will defend their constitutional rights, right? You know what I mean? And then mentally ill and drug addictions. And what they do is you have a whole group of people right here that they're making all kinds of money off of. And you know what? This whole group of people that you have stacked in a warehouse, majority of them, it's kind of like, humans are the only species or animal or biological living organism that willingly accepts incarceration.
Wow.
So chain a wolf's foot to that door.
He'll bite his foot off.
He'll chew his own foot off. Okay. So humans are the only species that will willingly accept incarceration or willingly accept to be a slave.
Except back in the 80s and 90s.
Yes. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what they do. That's how they control. So you have a whole population, and guess what? They don't just control that person that's incarcerated. They're controlling now a whole a mother, a father, right? Because now you have to bend to their rules.
Yeah.
And now you are because you want to know why.
I'm going to go home and be mad tonight,
Yes.
Mark. I'm going to lie in my bed and be mad.
Don't be mad. Don't be mad. We just have to continue on a path of trying to make things better. But I was going to tell you something really good too.
I'm sorry.
It was really no. But don't be mad. But that's how they control a group. And you know when we talk about all these things that they're not getting incarcerated, see, people don't realize it's not a prisoner or convict or inmate, as they say. It's not our right to get visits and to have programs and to see our family. It's your right. It's your constitutional right to be able to go visit your
I'm
son.
gonna write this down.
It's not his right. It's your right to see your family member. It's your right to be able to for him to call you. It's your right to be able to communicate with him. And that's where people don't understand is they're like, oh, okay, they took away family visits and they did all this. And they're like, no, they're taking away your rights because those are your rights to be. They can't incarcerate your family member and never let him talk to you again, or you never see him again. Those are your rights. So they're in.
You just gave me some food for thought.
Yes, well, they're infringing on your constitutional rights. They're infringing on your constitutional rights to be like when, there's probably a time period when you felt like help. Somebody, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And we all are raised, in different ways to some like me. Asking for help is not easy.
I'm like that too.
You know what I mean? But then if you did ask for help, there's no help. There's no help.
And then when Ray passed away, I was like so lost because he was like dealing with all of the incarcerated part, right? I was more of like being the nurturer to Josiah. And I was such an emotional wreck where he had to like literally carry me through it. Not literally carry me, but he was carrying the load for me because he's like, don't worry, we're going to get through this and we got to do this and we got to do that. Because I would have been lost, honestly. And, my brother being incarcerated for so many years, over 18 years, I wasn't involved in my brother's incarceration the way my parents was. It's a different dynamic. So I wasn't really in there in the loop of knowing how to navigate through incarceration. I'm learning, like just now you said, it's your constitutional right. I would have never thought that ever.
Yeah.
I think the tough thing too is a mom, because we may have all gone through it somehow, but when you're in it. You've lost every like brain cell imaginable, because I've worked in the system. I know how to get through these things. But when it's your child, it's like you had a lobotomy.
Right.
I felt like that. I'm like, what in the world? Like, I got to get my survival skills, but I was so, just so wrecked by the system that it just, you can't make it through, even if you really want to, because
Right.
they have not only incarcerated our children, but they've incarcerated us. 'Cause
Yeah,
now
I'm doing time with him.
oh, for sure.
When he has a bad day, I have a bad day. I won't show him that. I won't let him see that when I'm on the phone with him, because I always try to pump him up. I always try to encourage him. I always try to empower him. I'm like, Josiah, remember, nobody can take your power. You have to give them permission to do that. I'm always empowering him. But when I hang that phone up, I am a complete mess. I'm crying. I'll lay in my bed. I won't even answer my phone because I'm mad. And sometimes my daughter will call and I lose it. I'm like, babe, I'm sorry. I'm not having a good night. I'll call you later, And she gives me that now. She gives me my space when I'm not having a good night. Like, oh yeah, it's awful.
It is awful. And again, like you said, we're incarcerated with them, and the system, because I mean, really, and I've tried, I've tried to advocate for him. And again, it's like, man, I can do it. Right. And then you could give him that, power, but then you're out here and then he calls and he's like, man, what's going on? That you don't know, because when you're incarcerated, you don't know. And we don't know like how to even fix that, because the system is so broken. The system is such a mess. So it's, again, that whole education, we learned that in school.
Right.
We learned how to get through the Constitution, right? We knew what our rights were. What the heck happened? But when you're in it, it's like, it's a whole different ballgame. And again, I do know that our education to break that cycle is all great, but when we don't have the governmental umbrella to say, okay, this is where it's going to go. Public safety always is going to be number one. It just is. But what comes with public safety is the courts, with corrections, all of that. But all that money gets filtered into buying cool ass radios instead of, some education into the system. And then again, on the system part, you don't have a whole lot of staff that can even. Talking about staff, you have the new generation that doesn't know how to communicate, and then you have people that have been incarcerated that probably know more than you because they're in a different generation,
Right.
And so then they just take that away. They take away those things like Josiah. Gosh, praise God that he's doing this. But how many times are they going to miss because of something? Oh, like Mark
Or they're
said,
locked down. And
they're locked down.
They
He
can't go to the
can't
class.
go.
Because I remember, I'm not sure, one of the moms in the group, her kid got into a program, but they always canceled it. Oh, it's canceled today. Oh, it's canceled today.
Yeah, and they do that, and then
Or you get in trouble.
or you get a write up, and
Yeah.
they hand out and that's what I mean. It's like trial by my experience of prison was like that first initial when you get to prison, that first 6-7 months, it was like I got to be the worst person there is because they treat everybody, you know what I mean? And then, but you separate yourself,
You got to
Right.
set the tone.
You
So,
got to set the
like,
tone.
You might sacrifice and have to do a year, 2 years in confinement, solitary confinement, whatever. But once you get out, I think your time on the hard GP, general population, will be a lot easier. You know what I mean?
But
'Cause they
it's
do
different. But
they
it's
do
different.
the,
Y'all's generation is different. Where like your kiddo, if my son was having to go to prison,
But they're just
It's
what's
it's
happening now
different.
is they're just sitting there in the pod.
not doing nothing.
He's like, just
Yeah,
like what
no, for
Josiah
real.
said.
That they're just sitting and they're
Because
not.
they're not offering any
and they're-
programming
no,
and no
they're
reform.
not gonna- they're not gonna
Nothing.
offer
Not
no
even
program.
outside.
And this is the worst thing about it. And I don't know if it's like, but and it won't change unless they kick up dust.
Yeah.
They have the only way, and that's what sucks.
But you got to be
And
careful
see
doing
the-
that
yeah.
too, though.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
you see the mentality. See, like me, I don't get my way, and I don't think the first thing that I go to is not good, and that's what it taught me was because I know that you know what if somebody doesn't want to hear what you have to say, or you feel like there are some people that can make you hear what they have to
Oh
say.
yeah, I like to be heard, and
You-
trust
you-
me,
you
my
know-
word. When I want to be heard,
Right? Do you know?
Ray used to call me the bucking bull. He's like, "You're such a bucking bull."
But that's you either and that's why I say about they just sit right now. They're just sitting in a pod,
Right.
Just right. But imagine having to do that. All this is your table, and that's where you sleep, and
Yeah.
that's the bathroom, and then there's the day room, and that's it. And imagine that's it.
Yeah.
And you got to go like this.
And they're content with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go sign my good time. Get the fuck away from the door. Ain't nobody going. They're just like, whatever. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So what they're doing to him now is instead of, like, prison's supposed to be a little city. It's just supposed to be stuff going on all day long. People walking here, doing this, going there, working in the kitchen, doing that. Laundry. It's just supposed to be activity all day long. You know what I mean? It's a little city. They can't run without. But now what they do is they just get the people they need. Oh, we got the kitchen workers, and they go to work, and then they and then they just leave everybody in their pod. They don't call rec.
They'll have a whole different housing unit for them,
Yeah,
kitchen
for
workers
them.
or something.
They keep
So
them separated.
Wow. Yeah.
Not too many of them in population because the population's like, oh, well,
could influence them. And,
could influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they need to stay together. But now they don't. Because why? Because they just sit in a pod all day. They don't. They
On
don't.
tablets.
Yeah, they don't know.
Yes.
No, no. That is the truth.
Yeah.
And that's why they love that. They're like, oh yeah, let's get tablets.
And it's that generation because, right? We didn't grow up with that type of stuff. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have
No.
iPhone. We
Mhm.
didn't have a iPad,
no
a tablet.
None of that.
I mean, we had like Atari and Sega and stuff like that, but those were fun games. There was no, shooting games and poisoning our brain and everything else that comes with that.
Well, now they're just, what they're doing is what happens to what happens to your body if you just stay stagnant in a box?
Yep.
That's why right now, like, if you went and compared yourself like anatomically to someone that's incarcerated right now, it would open your eyes to something that you would not even, because you have to see it to understand it.
Right.
You have to see that you have to actually see somebody that you knew that was dark as hell, brown as hell, and then all of a sudden they look like they're albino, right?
Yeah.
Dark circles under their eyes, and their muscles deteriorated because they don't do, there's nothing. They just lock you in there. And it takes somebody, you have to really, 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 like, love to be outside or that physical stuff to put up with what you got to put up with to get out there to go to yard or to get out of there to do this or be willing to get in trouble. Because you never know. One day, you never know what they feel like. Oh, what are you doing in the wrong area? And that's what I'm saying about the education is great. It's not that they don't have programs in there. They just make it to where it's like so
not easily accessible.
It's so unaccessible for the average incarcerated person. Because I'm like,
well, they don't even let them go outside. So how can they even go outside to get sun or run or,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand like they can do push-up and burpees and all that stuff inside the pod. But I mean, as human beings, we need sunlight.
Yeah, need to play baseball.
I think, it becomes a control thing too financially, right? It's money. It's a moneymaker.
Right.
I was shocked that MDC just pushes the whole methadone, Suboxone now on.
But Suboxone is like,
and now it's a commodity
in the prison. It's crazy rampant in there. Like there's kids that are in there that never even did drugs that are using Suboxone, and it's mind blowing.
And then they give them a tablet. So they're going to sit there on the tablet.
It's like the teachers.
And then it's expensive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's again.
Well, they
it's
took out all the resources.
Yes.
You know what I mean? What are they going to do? They're going to up the price on stuff like that, commissary, and it's the only way they're going to make money. You know what I mean?
And then books, like what happened to what happened to library?
Right.
It was so difficult to get, for my son to even get a Bible or the law library or anything, and it's just not there, and it's a different, and it's expensive. So somebody's getting kickbacks for it, and that's again, the medication and all of that, and. It's control. They just, rather, and now this generation here's your tablet and, good luck. And then
that's
it
what
becomes
we're doing out here in the streets
yes.
too, with parents and their kids. Here, that's your babysitter.
Yeah,
These
my
kids
daughter,
got- you know
my
what I mean?
daughter, my grandkids have screen time. Like literally, they could have 20 minutes of screen time. They can watch one movie or one show per day. My daughter does not let her kids sit in front of the TV and watch TV all day long. She just doesn't do it. But we ran out of time.
Oh,
and
shoot.
I've
Okay.
had such an amazing evening with you guys. And I cannot thank you enough for being here. And I just want to end with just like maybe a minute each. Steve and Mark, just saying something to our generation today that is out there committing crimes. If you guys can just say something encouraging, a word of wisdom, whatever you want to call it.
My word of wisdom to the younger generation out there is I know that that fast lifestyle is fun, and it's an easy way to go, and I know it's fun. And it's exciting, and it's like, it's all of that, but you will regret. When you're older, you will regret that lifestyle, whether the choices you made make you end up going to prison or something for a long time, or maybe you don't. But I promise you, eventually one day you're going to look back at some of the choices you made and you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have, listened to some of the more positive role models in my life. And that's what I could say is like, you know what, there's, like, you need Jesus in your life. You like for real.
Oh, no, I know. I go to
You
church.
need God. Like you need God in your life, and you need like keep the positive people in your life, because a lot of us, when we're in that whirlwind, we seem to push away the positive people in our life and bring the negative, you know. So if you have someone positive in your life, you better hold on to them and listen to them, and just know that one day, like, the choices we make, you will regret some of the choices you made, like, and you'll be like, dang, I wish I would have made a better choice.
Right.
Because I know, like, and it's hard to talk to a younger generation, because I remember when I was trying to talk to them, I was like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Everybody says
You
that.
don't know what you're talking about. It's different for me. And it's really,
You're old.
It's not different for any of us. It's just different. It's just different characters.
Right. Thank you, Mark.
He nailed it on the head. You know what I mean? I don't even know how to compete with that. That's pretty much the same thing, you know. Take initiative, learn. Knowledge is power, definitely vital. Church is so important, you know what I mean? Because once you have God in your life, He's gonna, you know, everything's gonna align it. He's gonna remove people that don't belong in your life. It'll all work out.
My daughter says, my daughter always tells me, Mom, trash throws out itself.
Amen.
That's something she always uses.
I always
the trash
say,
throws out itself.
and be still. Know that I am God.
Patient.
Patience. You know, the fast life is not. It's not all that great, and we as a society have become too fast, and we need to slow our kiddos down.
Right. Well, thank you guys for being
Thank
here tonight.
you. Thank you.
Killed it.